Good evening, everyone. This is a public service information meeting hosted by the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee. The members of the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee present tonight are myself, Ann Merritt, Chair of the Northwest PAC, Vice Chair Nick Horn. Nick, can you please say hello?
Good evening, everybody.
Deputy Mayor Tim Outhit.
Good evening, colleagues.
Councillor Kathy Deagle-Gammon.
Good evening, everyone.
Stacey Rudderham.
Good evening, everybody.
Jacqueline Levere. I don't see Jacqueline here yet. Gina Jones-Wilson.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Jordan Foster. Jordan, are you here? Please say hello.
Sorry, I was muted. Hello.
Thank you, Jordan. And Ryan Donato? Not here, I guess. Okay. I will ask everyone to please keep your cameras engaged for now, so everyone can see who is actually on the committee and who's listening to them. HRM staff members present are Sean Gillis, the planner for case number 22267. Good evening, Sean. Miles Agar, principal planner. Andrea Lavassi Wood, legislative assistant, who will manage the participants list for tonight's hearing. And Alicia Wall, legislative support, who will be recording minutes of the meeting. Representing the developer on behalf of the Stevens Group, Shelley Dickey of Shelley Dickey Land Use Planning, and on behalf of Bedford Holdings Limited, Chris Markadis, I'm sorry, that's hard for me to get my tongue around, of ZAP Consulting Incorporated. This meeting is intended to allow HRM planning staff and the developer to provide information, hear from you about the proposed development, and answer questions. This meeting is being held virtually due to the public health restrictions limiting the size of public gatherings due to COVID-19. Thank you to the members of the public who registered to speak at this public information meeting. The public information meeting for case number 22267 is being held over 3 nights on May 26th, 27th, and 31st. Tonight's meeting is the first session. As a reminder to all speakers and those watching from home, in order to have signed up as a speaker, the deadline was 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 25th. There are 15 registered speakers for tonight's session. The Northwest Planning Advisory Committee is a volunteer committee made of residents and local councillors. The committee's role is to listen to staff, developer, and the public, and provide feedback to the Northwest Community Council on the development application. Your comments and questions are being recorded this evening and will be provided to members of the Planning Advisory Committee, staff, the developer, and the Community Council as part of the planning process. We also want to remind you that written submissions can be made to the Planning Office or the Office of the Municipal Clerk and are included as part of the public record. Before we begin, I want to take a few minutes to review a few guidelines for the meeting to help us all make this a successful event. Please express your comments or questions to me as chair, because it will help keep us all focused. Be respectful in your speech. Please keep your comments to the proposal, not people. Each participant will have up to 4 minutes to speak. Participants who go beyond the time or who do not respect the rules will be asked to mute themselves or to leave the meeting. To respect your time, we will make every effort to wrap up by the scheduled time. Once the participants list is exhausted, the meeting will be called to an end. If, as a result of the comments made during this meeting, you have additional questions or comments, Participants are invited to contact the planner, Sean, Gillis. We are here this evening to hear from you, and the agenda for this evening is a short presentation on the proposed development from planning staff, and then comments and questions from the public. We'll begin with the staff presentation. Sean, if you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be sharing my screen in a second. So before I begin, I just want to confirm that I'm sharing my screen and we can see that. Is that the case?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee and the public for coming out tonight. As noted, my name is Sean Gillis. I'm a planner with HRM. I've been working here for about 5 years and have about a similar level of experience in other municipalities across the Maritimes. But I did grow up in Clayton Park, so it's nice to be back home and working in the city I grew up in. So tonight's meeting, as noted, is for case 22267, Dartmouth Road and Wardour Street. And I've talked to many of you folks, and I understand that this is a meeting with a lot of people very much interested in, and a lot of people have some concerns about what we're doing here. So I ask that you have a listen and jot down any questions you might have. And after we're done everything, I'll do my best to answer all your questions. And as the chair said, if I don't go through things tonight, you can email me or call me. We can keep this conversation going. So with that being said, let's get into the things. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the study area that we're using. Now, there are two proposals within this study area for multi-unit buildings, and we will talk about those, but I'm going to try to start at a higher level start and give an idea of why staff recommended a study area and what the study area does and doesn't do and what's going on in there. So the first important thing to know is that Regional Council, which governs the HRM, gave staff direction to start the process that we're doing tonight in November of 2019. And everything in the hatches here is within our study area. So it's centered on Dartmouth Road, and it covers a little bit of stuff on Wardour Street and North Street as well. And the process will look at changing the Bedford Municipal Planning Strategy. I'll call that the land use policy as well. And the Bedford Land Use Bylaw. That's more commonly known as the zoning bylaw. Now, as I mentioned, there's two buildings proposed within that, but we do have a broader study area. And one thing that does, it lets us look at both buildings at the same time, because some of the issues, some of the topics are of course shared by the two buildings. And also it tells the area where we're looking at and where we're not. Potential changes could happen in the study area. At this point, there are no changes proposed or considered outside the study area. So I think that's...
Excuse me, Sean, we're still on slide 1. Did you intend to be?
I sent it forward. Is it not moving?
No.
I'm looking at slide 2. Let's try this again.
We're saying 1.
Okay. Is that at 2 now?
No.
Well,
No, it's still showing 1.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and try to reshare. Sorry about that, folks. We'll get this sorted out.
It's all new technology.
Absolutely. Okay.
There we
Okay.
go.
Are we seeing slide 2?
Yes, that's lovely. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to keep it here and just, is that going? Just a second here. Let's try. Okay, so slide 1
Mm-hmm.
Slide 2.
No,
Yeah.
Sean, it's Andrea here.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing your screen and I'll start sharing mine.
Can I try something first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Am I slide 3 now?
No.
You're not
Okay.
going anywhere here.
Okay, well, let's move over to the legislative assistant then. Okay, thank you, Andrea. I'm going to close my screen and we'll wait a second here, okay?
Mhm. So can everyone see slide 1 on the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
And slide 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Sean, just tell me when you want me to proceed.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Okay, so within the study area, we're going to do a quick run through. I imagine that many folks on the line are familiar with the study area, but in case everyone isn't, we'll do a quick look. So Dartmouth Road is also known as Highway number 7, going over to Magazine Hill. It hits the bypass, and so it's a fairly busy street connecting to Bedford Highway. Next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So this is looking towards Burnside, and this is on Dartmouth Road. The street right in front of you, heading right, is Wardour Street. The street on the left would be North Street. So it gives a sense of the broad study area. Next slide, please. This is across the street from where we just were, across the street from one of the development proposals. And you can see we've got an office building and we've got a Masonic Lodge, both with some fairly large parking lots. Next slide, please. Is that going to move? The next slide?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's okay, that one's fine, we'll just stay here. So this is again at the corner of Dartmouth Road and Wardour Street. And we're looking at the Bedford Public Library, which is part of the office building, the Wardour Center. There's 2 buildings. And you can see down Wardour Street. Off of Dartmouth Road, it very quickly changes into more residential neighborhood, very green, and some narrower streets. Next slide, please. And this is looking at the parking lot, which is next to the Wardour Center, behind the Wardour Center. So you would enter this parking lot off of Wardour Street, and one of the buildings is proposed for this lot. Next slide, please. And then looking across the street, also on Wardour Street from that direction, gives you a sense of some of the single unit dwellings in the area. And this is also near where one of the other proposals is. And we'll get to that again a little bit later. So next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit about who's involved in this process and who is making decisions and who's providing recommendations. And I think it's important that people know this just so we all understand what we're all doing. So very important to point out that within this process, the Regional Council of HRM are the decision makers. So they, at the end of this process, which is still a ways away, will make a final call on if there are changes to any policy and what those changes might be. The developers who are on the line tonight and have an opportunity at the end to speak if they would wish, they propose buildings. They own land and they propose buildings. And in this case, Regional Council is considering those proposals, but also the broader neighborhood. Residents are stakeholders who provide feedback. We want to make sure that residents are knowledgeable and have a lot of chances to speak. And the HRM planners, myself, our main job is to review and make recommendations. But in a lot of ways, we stick handle the process. So we work to make these meetings, we work to get information to residents, and we often answer questions and work with staff, the clerk's office, the committees, to make sure that the process roll keeps moving. It's key to note that we do make recommendations, but we do not make the decisions. And finally, the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee, which is the host tonight, they make recommendations as well. So you can see there's a number of different people involved and a number of different roles. But the main decision maker is regional council. The final say is with them. Next slide, please. And so with these public information meetings, very important to note that no decisions are made at any of the meetings these 3 nights. And I have had some questions as to why there are 3 nights of meetings. And the simplest answer is coming out of the survey, which we have done and we'll talk about, we just knew there was going to be a lot of interest and we didn't think it would fit in 1 or even 2 nights. And that turned out to be the case. We have a lot of people registered to speak. There's a lot of interest. So 3 meetings, and this is a chance for you to ask questions, provide your feedback, and 1 chance to have your say. There's going to be more, and we will talk about that. So tell us what you think, ask us questions, and like the chair said, be respectful, but let us know what you're thinking. Don't hold back on that. Next slide, please. So I wanted to review what we've done to date on this planning process because this has been taking a little longer than a usual planning process, primarily because of COVID. And when I've been chatting with people, they've been thinking, well, it's taken so long, it must be a done deal, right? That's not the case. So I'm going to go through the process and I'll hopefully let you know why this one's taking a little bit longer and also what we've been doing. So to start, the developers requested to change land use policy. And in response to that, we had a staff report going to regional council where we recommended the study area approach. So council agreed, and in November of 2019, they initiated or started off this process. So after that, we put signs on the property and we put our web page up, and we had a public information meeting in person scheduled for March 2020. And of course, COVID derailed that project. And coming out of that, we had to get new direction from council on how to proceed, but it took a while to get that done because we had to work out technology, we had to work out what council wanted to do, etc. So we did a public survey. We'll speak about those results in a little bit. We received over 100 replies in November of 2020. We got council direction to host online meetings for many different projects. So this is one of many online meetings that we're doing. And of course, we scheduled and advertised meetings. So most of the break that we've had is actually between canceling the March public meeting in 2020 and getting direction to reschedule this meeting. So that's why we're a little bit behind timeline-wise. And I hope people understand that COVID has been difficult. So next slide, please. I'm going to speak a little bit at a higher level about the planning documents that we're using to guide this process. And then we'll get more specific and we'll talk about how they apply within the study area. So there are 4 main topics. So the first is the Bedford Municipal Planning Strategy. And I've been calling that the planning policy. And what it does, it provides the long-term direction for what types of development and where they can happen in Bedford. Now, the Bedford Land Use Bylaw works with the planning strategy. So the planning strategy provides the direction and the land use bylaw makes it happen, also known as the zoning bylaw. I'll probably call it the zoning bylaw most of this evening. So the zoning bylaw breaks the municipality, in this case, only the Bedford part, into zones, which has a collection of rules about what land uses and building types can happen. And so those are the local plans. Above that, there's what's known as the HRM regional plan. And it's a regional plan directing where population growth and new housing should happen and what type of development should happen across the municipality. So it's a very important plan. It's been in place since 2006, and it guides regional council's decision-making for all of these different planning projects. And finally, a newer plan, only a couple of years old, is the Integrated Mobility Plan, which broadly directs how land use planning and transportation should work together. Next slide, please. So this is a look at the land use policy at a high level for the study area. And what we see is that the R is for residential, C is for commercial. Residential and commercial are broadly what's in the plan area for the most part, although there is some institutional and parkland. That zoning would be for the school and the cemeteries. And it's important to know that when you have a residential designation, the zoning has to match. So for this land use policy set, you'll see residential designation and similar residential zones, commercial and similar commercial designations. Also very important in Bedford, the way that the planning strategy is set up, if you want to add units beyond what the policy allows, it always requires you to change this document. It's an interesting thing about Bedford, but that's one reason we're here tonight. The developments being proposed do not match the policies of this document, the land use policy, and therefore we're looking at them within the study area. So next slide, please. So we talked about the residential designation, and I will give you some very important goals for that designation. And these are within the land use policy, and they are, for Bedford broadly, they are to permit residential development to occur in areas where the municipality can easily provide services. I'm checking my notes here. I don't have these memorized. Provide for a choice of housing. Preserve the character of existing neighborhoods in their present form. Permit the full range of residential uses, and promote neighborhood stability within established residential areas. So very important. Those are the high-level goals for residential areas within Bedford, including this study area. So if we zoom down from that high-level goal, we get a little more specific with the land use bylaw, the zoning. So now we can see we have a few more zones than we had designations. CGB is a general business zone, a commercial zone, and that's applied to some of the commercial properties in the area. The RSU zone is residential single unit. So for the single unit housing, that zone is applied. Across the rail tracks to the top or to the north, you can see some different commercial zones, a mix in around Sunnyside Mall and Bedford Highway. That's out of the study area, but just gives you an idea of what's nearby. And finally, at Parker's Brook, we have residential townhouse. Interesting. It's zoned for townhouse, but through a development agreement, the Parker's Brook, which is a multi-unit building, is permitted. So the land use bylaw, important to note, it allows certain things to happen. So if you're zoned for commercial or residential, you have the option to do those things. If you're zoned for a multi-unit or townhouses, you can do those things. You're not required to. Almost all of the residential zones, they usually allow single unit housing underneath, and people can keep doing that should that be their choice. Next slide, please. This is the regional plan. So again, we talked about the higher level nature of the regional plan, and this is looking just at Bedford, not even all of Bedford. Bedford's pretty big. So we have in the regional plan growth centers that have been designated where new residents coming into the municipality, this is where we'd like to see housing and jobs to support them and to house them. So Bedford West on the left of your screen is an example of a growth center. And this is a growth center that is a new growth center. So we didn't have development. Excuse me. And over the last couple of years, they've been developing new roads, new lots, new buildings, new parks. And the other type of growth center in Bedford, similar to that, would be Bedford South, so around Larry Utech Boulevard. That's one type of growth center. They're not all the same. There's also Mill Cove and there's Sunnyside Mall, which does encompass the study area. And within these two growth centers, the idea is to add people into areas that are already built up. And that can mean that vacant lots can be redeveloped. It could mean that redevelopment can happen at higher densities, different building types. And the whole idea is that right now, Halifax is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and there is a really high demand for housing. So we're trying to find the appropriate growth centers to put housing for new residents. So what planning staff and the committees and council will be trying to do is to use guidance from the regional plan and from the Bedford municipal planning strategy to decide how to approach this study area to balance multiple competing interests. So next slide, please. So within that study area, I've mentioned a couple of times that regional council told us to start this process. So they gave us some marching orders when that happened. So within this study area, there are those two proposals, which we'll talk about. And council said that within the study area, they will consider the following things: low to mid-rise buildings, multi-unit residential, such as townhouses and multi-unit buildings, and a mix of uses, including both residential and commercial uses in the same buildings. So council will consider this. But also very important to note that regional council also gave conditions. And they didn't say that, they said that new development has to meet these conditions, that development provides an acceptable transition to nearby properties, which means that essentially larger buildings have to be reasonable next to smaller buildings, yards, building size, that sort of thing is what we look like. That it has to be pedestrian supportive and transit oriented. That's pretty fancy planner speak for it should be easy to get from your front door to a sidewalk and from there to a bus. And finally, is context sensitive. So does it make sense in this area? Does it work with the multiple different building types around it? So what will council be considering when they look at that? Well, a lot of different things that we're going to talk about, and some of which we have talked about this. And at the end of this process, regional council will decide what land use policies might meet these conditions. And that approach could mean no changes. That is one possibility. So next slide, please. Okay, so these are the two proposals that are within the study area. So this is the proposal by the Stevens Group, and it is on Dartmouth Road between Wardour Street and Stone Terrace. So there are some lots that front Stone Terrace, there are some lots that front Dartmouth Road, and there are lots that front Wardour Street. And below the picture, you can see an outline of the properties that Stevens Group is interested in, they own. And so it would be a 4-story building, 48 residential units. And it's really important to note that at this stage, this is a concept that the applicant is proposing and asking council to consider. It's a concept for two reasons. One, they don't have approval to build it. So they're not going to spend an enormous amount of time doing an extremely detailed building design if they don't know they can build it. And secondly, council told us to look at a study area. So some rules could be very different than what is proposed here, or there could be no changes. So that is a possibility too. So next slide, please. This is a site plan showing the building and showing the access proposed not off Dartmouth Road. Next slide, please. This proposal is the one that is fully off of Wardour Street. So the parking lot behind the Wardour Center. And this is being proposed by Universal Properties, who own the Wardour Center. And they're proposing 5 stories. It would be 4 stories at the parking lot area facing the Wardour Center. Excuse me again. 5 in the back with an access off of Wardour Street. Next slide, please. That one, just looking through my notes again, 51 residential units proposed. Again, this is conceptual. So we have a site plan here and showing you an idea of how they're proposing a new building could work on this site. Next slide, please. So again, a different view of the building. This would be from the parking lot of the Wardour Center. Important to note that in this case, for this building concept, this does have some commercial uses on the ground floor. Next slide, please. So just another look at the study area with the 2 proposals highlighted in red to give you one more idea of where they are within the study area. Next slide, please. So the surveys. As I mentioned, we had a lot of interest in the survey. We mailed out 267. We received 103. And I do apologize, that number is different than what's on the website. We double counted a few surveys. I also apologize that not all of the surveys made it onto the website. We counted 103. They did not all make it onto the website. That was an error on my part, a tech error, and we're working to fix it, but we've had a lot to focus on with this meeting. So what the survey said overall is that most respondents to the survey strongly oppose new zoning, especially for multi-unit buildings. And many respondents see this as being larger than just these sites on Dartmouth Road and Wardour Street. And to go into that a little further, people are very much concerned that if there's apartment buildings, multi-units, townhouses, whatever, on Dartmouth Road, then that's going to flood into Fort Sackville Road, that this is the thin edge of the wedge, if you will. People are concerned that single unit zoning is both a promise and a long-term expectation from the municipality, and essentially that HRM should respect that. And many residents said that they do not see benefits for them or their neighborhood for these types of proposals for changing policy in the study area broadly. And I don't want to focus too much on the numbers, but I would say that about 3/4 of people were against to strongly against almost all options here that we're talking about. Specific concerns, a little more specifically, included traffic, congestion, and cutting through the Fort Sackville neighborhood. And that was cited by almost everyone. Well over 90% of respondents said that. Loss of neighborhood character and increasing the population without the right infrastructure. And I will note that a small number of residents were in favor of multi-units or townhouses, and they commonly cited the need for new units and the potential to support local businesses. So that's a quick overview of the survey. I'm expecting that we'll discuss more of those issues tonight. And I understand that people have some really, really grave concerns about this. So ask your questions when we get the chance, and we'll see what we can do to answer some of your questions as we go. Next slide, please. So from the survey, and we've had these for many months now, we've read them, we compiled them, we've thought about them. The questions that I have coming out of the survey are really 2 questions. How does the existing mix of buildings impact the character of Dartmouth Road? And how do the existing buildings impact the overall neighborhood? So that's something to think about. And also, how does council best balance the needs and desires of this neighborhood with the high demand for housing in HRM, and also the direction of the regional plan to consider different housing types within these growth centers. And so these two questions are something that we're going to be discussing as planning staff, and I expect the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee to discuss. And you folks are free to tell us whatever you want tonight, but thinking about that question and trying to give us some feedback, I think that would be valuable for us. So I'll leave that with you. Next slide, please. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the potential approaches that we could take in the study area. And there's four big ones. The first would be new policy to allow multi-unit buildings in specific locations. The second would be new policy to allow townhouses or stacked townhouses in specific locations. The third would be no changes to zoning or land use policy. And a fourth option would be to mix and match these options, different zones on different lots. And I want to stress that within the study area, just because a property is within the study area doesn't mean that we will change it. It doesn't mean that it is on the block for multi-unit development or townhouses. It means we're looking at it. So that's important to keep in mind. And we did draw a study area and we did say multi-unit buildings, and people reacted against that strongly, but there's a number of different approaches that we could take here, and we'll go through them, starting with the next slide, please. So one option that we want to put forward that was discussed with council, kind of implied and given direction to, is the idea of townhouses. So townhouses, I imagine everyone is familiar with. You have side-by-side houses connected together, lots of them. And stacked townhouses are similar, except instead of one unit, you have two units up and down stacked side by side. So it does provide more units, but it's a similar building form, although a little bit taller usually than regular townhouses. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of stacked townhouses. So you can see multiple units and multiple doors per section. So it's not a super high building, but it can be, doesn't have to be, it can be a longer building than other building types. So next slide, please. And the final option, this is very much a concept. This is just a drawing of what a major street with some properties around it of different sizes could look like. And we've got different colors on different sized lots. So what does that mean? That means that we could mix and match different rules and different zoning for different lots within the study area. So some lots could stay as residential single unit or something very similar. Some lots could get a different zoning for different housing types. It's not a broad paintbrush. We can pick lot by lot if we so choose. So that is an option as well. Next slide, please. I promise I will come to an end. I do promise that. Thank you for your patience. The next steps. The Northwest Planning Advisory Committee will discuss this at a meeting. They'll provide a recommendation, staff review and staff report. Staff will provide a recommendation. That is a fairly formal process. We provide not just a recommendation, we will be providing some policy to go with it so that council has something to look at. Northwest Community Council will get that staff report. They'll review it and provide a recommendation to Regional Council. And Regional Council, as I mentioned, is the decision maker, and they will be doing the public hearing and they will be making a decision. So next slide, please. So with all of those next steps to go, it's important to remember that there are more opportunities to provide feedback. Residents can provide written comments for Northwest Planning Advisory Committee before they meet. They can provide written comments for Northwest Community Council. And they can, of course, provide written comments and they can speak at the public hearing. And if you were on the mail-out list for this meeting, you will be on the mail-out list for the public hearing. And as always, you can email or phone planning staff. And if you're unsure of who to talk to, clerks@halifax.ca. They can help you out with meeting information, and they can send your feedback to the right people at the right time. They're really friendly, they reply quickly, and they're very helpful. Next slide, please. And the final thing that I want to stress is that a decision by regional council can't be made until after a public hearing. And the short description of a public hearing, it's similar to this, but council has a chance to listen to everyone. They have all of the information before them. They have the recommendations, and then they can make the decision. So there is yet another chance to speak your mind to council and to speak directly to the decision makers. Thank you very much, folks. That's my final slide. I've taken up enough of your time, so off to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we will move along then to the questions from the public. But before we do that, just a few reminders. Before participants are invited to share questions and comments, they have about case 22267, Dartmouth Road and Wardour Streets in Bedford. The legislative assistant will call 3 speakers at a time to help you prepare for speaking. If you're using a phone, keep your phone muted until you hear your name. Make sure that your webcast is muted, then press *6. You'll hear an announcement say that you're no longer muted. Don't speak yet. When I call your name, you may unmute your mic and begin speaking. You will have up to 4 minutes to ask your question. Each speaker is asked to begin by stating your name and the name of your community. Keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. Once you've finished your comments, please hang up your phone or leave the Zoom meeting and watch the rest of the meeting using the webcast. The link is available at halifax.ca agenda page for this meeting. Due to the number of speakers registered for this evening's meeting, I will ask the planner to make note of all questions asked by speakers, and I'll do that too, so that the planner can answer all the questions after the last registered speaker finishes their comments. If a question requires further research, the planner will reply to registered speakers via email when they are able after the meeting. Participants who go beyond the time or who do not respect the rules will be asked to mute themselves or to leave the meeting. If, as a result of the comments made during this meeting, you have additional questions or comments, participants are invited to contact the planner, Sean Gillis. I'll now ask the legislative assistant to call upon the first group of 3 registered participants.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first speaker on our list is Lau Weir, but he has phoned into the clerk's office to say that he will participate on May 31st. Okay. So the first group of 3 speakers that I have are Ron Degroot and Susan Eastham, Ji Zhang, and John Tolson.
Okay.
So Ron Degroot and Susan Eastham have the same 4-minute spot.
Yes. Okay. Are they muted now or are they online?
They're in the process of, Ron is in the meeting.
Okay. Welcome, Ron. And you and Susan will have 4 minutes combined to ask your questions. You may begin now. Oh. I guess he didn't quite get unmuted. Mr. Degroot.
Hi, Ron. If you're using a headset, that might be causing the issues. We can't hear you speak.
Oh, there he is. Okay, Mr. Degroot. No, we're not hearing you.
So Mr. Degroot, on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a mic button. There's an up arrow to the right-hand side of that icon. And your microphone and speaker settings are there to see if you can turn on your microphone. Sorry, Ron, I can't hear you. So Ron, if you want, I would suggest perhaps leaving the meeting and rejoining. And when you rejoin, we will get back to you. We'll move on to the next speaker, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So Ron, do you understand that? Just rejoin the meeting without your headset turned on, and then we'll try you again when you rejoin.
You will get your chance to speak.
You will get.
It's not working. Okay, in the interest of saving a little bit of time here, we're going to move to the next speaker. And that, I believe, is Xin Zhao. Am I pronouncing that properly? Everybody seems to have
Just a moment, Madam
Yeah,
Chair. I think
thank
she's
you.
just coming in now.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Do I need to turn on the camera or is it optional?
It's up to you, however you would
Okay.
like to do it.
Okay, maybe I just keep it. I'm quite shy in front of the camera. My name is Xin Zhao. I live in Holiday Lane, so I believe it will be called North Street. And we just bought the house last year, so we are quite new to this area. And we are covered in the study area, their proposal. My first concern will be the traffic. And based on our experience and daily life, we found that Dartmouth Road has some inherited flaws because we live in a hidden driveway connected to the Dartmouth Road. So each time when we try to get out the hidden driveway, we must stay very alert and take extra cautions because the cars from both directions are running at very high speed. And the shape of the Dartmouth Road is like a ring, like circle shape. So it doesn't give like enough distance, safety distance, and reaction time for the driver to notice the people or the car coming up the hidden driveway. So there's a risk of collisions. And also, due to the lack of traffic light and crossroad for pedestrians, we cannot enjoy walking in the community. So we are kind of locked in our houses because there's no pedestrian walkway and no sidewalks and no traffic light. So we cannot send our kids, they cannot safely walk to the school. The only way we get out is by car. So it's kind of deprive our joy of walking and explore the community in the neighborhood. So my worry is the proposal of the two buildings will get the situation even worse. And the volume of the traffic and also the current infrastructure cannot support the larger populations. And because we have kids going to the school every day, so we find already a struggle and a challenging time in the morning, in the afternoon, in the peak hours to get off the road. And also the parking space around the school area is also limited. And it's kind of chaotic each day when we try to send the kids to school. So, and side effect of this proposal, also the air pollution and noise pollution, because we are live quite near to the road. So in the summer, when we open the window, it's quite noisy. And I think more buildings will make the situation even worse. Yeah, that's my feedback and concern about these proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess we're moving along now to our next speaker.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's John Tolson. He's joining us by telephone.
Okay.
So John, it's showing, you're showing as muted. So if you could please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Good evening, Mr. Tolson. You you have 4 minutes, and you can begin now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I was a counselor when Bedford was incorporated between 1980 and 1986. We were against the development on Wardour Street that was then Fort Sackville Road, Wardour, and now Fort Sackville has been changed to Stone Terrace. The Bedford Municipal Planning Strategy was put in place for we in Bedford because we lived here and we knew what we wanted. My family has been in Bedford since 1850. That's 160 years. My family saved the Scott Manor House, and I gave you the Fort site and the Scott Manor House. This area is historic, and I do not want a new planner to change it. On March 23rd, 20, you proposed a significant change to the area. Then on May 10th, 20, you added more to the west side of High Street. The area has been single family with some small 8-unit buildings. Now you want this historic old Bedford to have big buildings up to 51 units, 5 stories. This is bad for the area and significantly the stormwater as it goes down Stone Terrace under the C&R railway tracks in 2 12-inch pipes, of which one has collapsed. You will flood Camden Street, Stone Terrace, and part of Fort Sackville Road, especially with the Wardour development. I am also a developer, and I'd like to point out the Wardour Center has approximately 52,000 square feet with 177 parking spots today. You're proposing reducing this from 177 to 113 and adding 4 stories plus. I guess that all developers need not pay any attention to your rules as they can be easily changed by anyone to get HRM more tax dollars. Note, Wardour Center needs the 173 parking spots. I'm against all of the changes you're proposing on all 4 sites. I do believe that perhaps you should consider townhouses only, not stacked townhouses, just townhouses or R1. I have properties on Stone Terrace, Fort Sackville Road, Camden Street, and Shore Drive. And I can tell you the traffic is out of this world, especially on my Shore Drive property at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I can't back out of my driveway. The traffic is crazy because they're shortcutting from Dartmouth Road. If you put this proposal forward, you'll probably ask the developer to put in lights on Wardour Street. That's great, except we don't need this development. We don't need lights there. Everybody that comes out of Wardour Street has a hard time turning left. Not right, but left. When you come out from North Street, there's no problem turning right. You're going to where the commerce is, which is the shopping centers, Sunnyside, etc. There is no sidewalk on the west, or I guess we'd call it the east side of the Bedford Highway. The sidewalk is on the west side. Therefore, the proposal on the east side is wrong.
John, you're at 30 seconds, please.
The proposal on the east side is way too large for the area, and you are changing the rules by taking away all those parking spots from Wardour Center because that's what you required when it was built. Now you are saying, we don't need those 66 extra parking spots. We'll just put a great big building there and maybe we'll put it underground. I know that underground is going to end up being very, very expensive, and it's not going to give you the parking for the commercial space, which you are now taking away. Therefore, I'm very adamant against this whole proposal. Leave Bedford alone. What we had was what people in Bedford wanted. Leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
Madam Chair, our next group of 3 speakers include John Noden, Thomas Higgins, and Lisa Abbott.
Okay, can you tell Mr. Nodden to please unmute? Mr. Tolson?
John Noden, you're on the phone, so if you could please press *6 to unmute.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Tolson to please mute his phone or to leave the meeting, one or the other. Mr. Nodden?
Mr. Nodden, please press *6 to unmute your phone.
Okay, perhaps we should come back to him.
Yes, Madam Chair. Why don't we go to Thomas Higgins?
Okay. Okay, Mr. Higgins, I see you. Unmute your, he's muted. Can you tell Mr. Higgins to unmute, please?
Hello.
Oh, good. Hello, Mr. Higgins. You can begin your presentation now. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. I don't know how I can top John Tolson's there, but I feel very strongly. I grew up in Bedford. I'm 66 years of age, and I'm in my second home now. I live at 28 Fort Sackville Road. Love the character of the neighborhood. That's why I moved here. And as Mr. Tolson pointed out, between 4 and 6 p.m., you can't even walk over to get the mail. People are steadily coming to our neighborhood. It's an elementary school area, school zone. People routinely go 60 to 80 kilometers an hour through here routinely, and it's only increasing. So I'm against the proposal. They would just put extra traffic volume on our street and decrease property values. I think our property values are high here. We pay the taxes for that, yes, but our property values are high, and I like to keep them that way. When someone moves into an R1 neighborhood, especially old Central Bedford, they want that. They don't want to, and lots of view planes. I look out to, my deck faces the east. Well, I look out to the east in the morning, I see the sun coming up, the birds singing. With these buildings go in, I'll be looking at the side of reflective glass or something. So I don't like that. So, and as Sean Gillis said earlier, the thin tip of the wedge, I put it as a slippery slope. If one developer gets approval, another developer is going to say, well, what about me? He's got this. I want to put this one here, and they buy up a few empty properties. And we have an elementary school in the area, and I very strongly want to preserve the character of my neighborhood. I love it. I walk here, there's a lot of young children in the area, and with traffic volume as it currently is, between 4 and 6 p.m., it's very dangerous. So this is going to be, in my view, nothing but negative for the area, negative for my quality of life and my neighbors. So those are my feelings. I know I'm a little shy, but I'm trying to put them forward as best as I can.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, and thank you for coming tonight.
Okay, you're welcome. And just one extra thing.
Yes.
There are lots of vacant areas as Sean pointed out, in Bedford West. There's lots of area out there for new development. Keep our registered Old Central Bedford R1, move some of the planning out there. There's lots of empty woods out there. They can put things out there, in my view.
Okay. Your comments have definitely been recorded and will be noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and Andrea, our next speaker.
I am going to ask John Noden to unmute himself by pressing *6.
And Thomas, you can mute yours, please.
Okay.
Mr. Noden's *6 doesn't seem to be working.
No. So John Noden, what I'm going to recommend that you do is to leave the meeting and to rejoin it via your telephone, and we'll see if that will enable you to unmute yourself when you rejoin the meeting. So we will come back to you. So Madam Chair, the next person on the list is Lisa Abbott.
Yes. Okay, and if you would have her unmute, please. Lisa Abbott, can you please unmute your mic?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Welcome, and you have 4 minutes to make your presentation, and you can begin now.
Thank you. Just FYI, I was told I had 5 minutes last Friday by Sean Gillis, so I made some notes. I ran to about 5 minutes, and I will skim through them as quickly as possible. My name is Lisa Abbott. I live on Main Street in Bedford. It's a quiet street off of North, which is also off of Dartmouth Road. We bought our house in 2015 and actually started to live in it in 2019. Between 2015 and 2019, my parents lived in the house and my mother continues to live with us. It's very important to me to be speaking to you about my neighborhood and the proposed rezoning and development of Wardour Street and Stone Terrace. And despite no request from developers, there is a proposal to rezone the Dartmouth Road where Masonic Lodge is, and as well on the other side of the Masonic Lodge, going up Dartmouth Road. I'm not sure why HRM planners included this area in the proposed rezoning. This area would literally be in my backyard and actually includes a strip of property that runs from Main Street to Dartmouth. I strongly oppose the rezoning proposal. I can't emphasize this enough. I grew up in Bedford on Shore Drive, just down the street from the proposed Wardour Street development. I went to Bedford Central Elementary School, walked over Eaglewood Hill to get to my junior high, and caught the bus at the Masonic Lodge for school at the old CPA on Rocky Lake Drive. I lived at the Lions Playground and the pool in the summers when I was younger. I moved away and have lived and traveled all over the world. Most recently, we lived in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. While living in Ottawa, and before leaving for Kuala Lumpur, we bought the house on Main Street and with the intention of retiring, which we did in 2019. While I lived away from Bedford, my parents continued to live here, and I would bring my family for holidays and summer vacations. In fact, my oldest daughter always said she wanted to work at the Chicken Burger when she grew up. I'm lucky to have had a childhood that I remember fondly enough to want to retire where I grew up. We chose Bedford, and specifically around the area I grew up, Old Bedford, and eventually found a house on Main Street, which is a quiet cul-de-sac with lots and lots of mature trees and deer eating our tulips. We chose Old Bedford because it is a unique community in HRM, Wardour Street, Division Street, Rutledge Street, all those really old, amazing streets. There are people who are looking for neighborhoods like this, and trust me, I looked. They are becoming few and far between. It's easy to find new builds, new neighborhoods, but it is not easy to find older neighborhoods with established character and grand old trees. We cannot lose these neighborhoods. We walk our neighborhood and we walk Wardour Street Shore Drive area weekly. It really is a special place. One of my neighbors told me that they couldn't believe they were able to buy their house, which has lots of land and surrounded by many, many trees. In fact, we can't see their house because there's so many trees. They were able to buy their country or their village property right in Bedford. This is amazing. In preparation for this meeting, I did read many documents, specifically the Bedford Municipal Planning Strategy, which I'll call MPS, and I'll quote from it a bit. One of the quotes is, the overall objective of the strategy is the enhancement of physical, social, and economic well-being of the residents of Bedford through preservation, creation, and maintenance of an interesting, livable town, developed in an orderly fashion and in a scale and density which preserves and enhances the quality of life.
Lisa, you're at 30 seconds.
Okay, to quote, to provide and preserve the character of an existing neighborhood in their present form. Heritage, quote, heritage is an important element in the makeup of any community as it contributes to its character or its sense of place. That is also a quote. Thank you very much. I disagree with the proposed rezoning, and I strongly emphasize that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I wonder if who have we missed here? Oh,
So John Noden is back in the meeting, Madam Chair,
okay, good.
and he is unmuted.
Yes, hello, Mr. Norton.
Hello.
Yes, you have 4 minutes and you can begin now.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. As I'm sure you're aware, this proposal goes against many of the zoning laws and planning regulations, and I'm sure many of our neighbors will speak to this. So I'm going to give you our personal thoughts and concerns of my wife and I. We are totally opposed to you even considering this zoning change. R1 zoning is what attracted us to this area. In our search for a new home, we saw some nice houses, and we ruled them out because they were in the shadows of large apartment buildings. So when we saw this house at 34 Stone Terrace and saw that the whole block was R1 zoning, we were attracted to that area. And with the thought we would not have to worry about being in the shadow of any big building. So I must ask you, why do we have rules or master plans if we're going to keep changing them? It's like you're lying to everyone that researches an area to settle in, and then you change it. I urge you to stick to the rules and leave our community as R1 only. And we already have more than enough traffic trying to exit our streets. Even at 6:30 a.m., it takes me up to 5 minutes to turn left out of Stone Terrace onto the Dartmouth Road. And this will only get worse with all the development going on in Bedford and all the people heading for Burnside. And committee members, I urge you all to read all the surveys, not just the summary. Because in my opinion, the summary does a very, very poor job of expressing the content that the people put in the many surveys that you received. We have a beautiful historic family neighborhood here, too much traffic now to deal with, so please leave the zoning as it is. We have strained infrastructure. Current traffic is dangerous at best. Historic value of the Fort Sackville community must also be considered. So follow the rules. Keep the area for single-family development only. I'm sure you will hear the same argument from every resident that lives here. So please follow the existing rules and keep this area zoned as it is and as it was planned to be. Please do not force us to consider selling or moving out of this community because you are going to put us in a shadow if you build that 4-story building. Thank you for listening to our concerns, and please do the right thing. And that is the opinion of myself, John Nodden, and my wife, Christine Nodden. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norton. Okay. And our next speaker, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. Our next 3 speakers are Dennis Domner, Arthur Baxter, and Don Venish.
Okay.
So I'm just going to ask Don to unmute himself.
Okay, Mr. Venish.
Hi there.
Hello,
You hear me?
welcome, and you have 4 minutes. You can begin now.
Okay, Madam Chairman. So my name is Don Venish, and I'm not sure what neighborhood I live in or which was one of the instructions in the name of the community, but I live on Camden Street. And some of what I'm about to ask about has been addressed to some degree. I think Sean Gillis did a really good job of explaining the criteria for judgment that the council will use. But it's interesting to me that almost everybody here is expressing emotions which don't seem to be part of those criteria. And I think they're important and should be. Anyway, at the risk of covering stuff that's already been covered, I'll quickly go through my questions. The first one is, what do the current...
Oops.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're good now. You
Okay.
blinked out there.
Why do the current bylaws prohibit apartment buildings? And what is it that they protect? I'm interested in other people's answer, but my answer is that they protect the character of the neighborhood. Not only from 2 buildings being proposed and an influx of people to go with them and cars, but more to follow. And that's a concern, obviously, to everybody who's spoken so far. My next question is, what effect would changing the laws have on the value of our homes? And I'm told that that's not well known, but here's what I think. I think the value of a home isn't only money. It's also in enjoyment. The noise you don't hear, the noise you can make yourself, the availability of parking and parks, and how many people you encounter and share space with in the neighborhood. What you pay in money is connected to what you get to enjoy. So the value in money can't be separated from this other kind of value. People's homes are typically their biggest financial asset, like a bank account with thousands of dollars in it. Then one day, today, the bank, the council, calls and says, we're planning to change your dollars to the same number of Uruguayan pesos. What do you think? Well, my answer is, I think you're not acting in my best interest. You're squandering the value of my asset. Finally, I'm wondering if this is about providing affordable housing to people who need it. I think it must be. Who are the people? Are they single moms and their kids who need schools and parks and shopping they can walk to? Are they retirees? Or are they young men whose only outlet is to drive too fast, blasting hip hop from their radios? I don't know the answer, but I do know the character on that answer. And it isn't beside the point. This will affect the quality of life we all enjoy here.
You have 30 seconds.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Venus.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is
Dennis.
Mr. Dahmer.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good.
You have 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Dennis Dahmer. My daughter and I each own a property in the immediate area. I want to say hello to all the fellow property owners and thank the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee, the councilors, and HRM planning staff for allowing me to speak regarding the 2 proposals on Wardour, Stone, and Dartmouth Road. I will make some of my comments, my own comments, and also remark on some statements that were made in the surveys. Firstly, aside from fine-tuning design aesthetics, parking ratios, landscaping, etc., which can be worked on, I believe that the proposals by the developers are reasonable. From reading the surveys, a number of which were against the 2 proposals, I saw the name Jane Jacobs invoked. Jane Jacobs did not have a problem, in her words, density well done. Property values will not go down. Apartment buildings coexist with houses on the peninsula and those houses keep rising in value. The statement made regarding an increase in crime and theft where apartments exist is a pejorative statement. If that is the case, should the seniors who live at the Parkers Brooks apartments at 25 Dartmouth Road now be looked upon with suspicion as being potential crooks and thieves? Who knows? Some of the residents right now who are not in favor of the proposal may in time not be able to live in their houses, but would still like to live in the area. Where would they go? Sorry. Extremism on the left or right does not accomplish any worthwhile goals and is usually harmful. Balance is the key. Finally, safety and traffic should be the main areas of concern. Any development agreement should have concomitant with it a full set of traffic lights, which are long overdue at Wardour and Dartmouth Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker
is Arthur Baxter, and he's joining by phone, and I'm just asking him to unmute his phone right now.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Baxter.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you, and welcome. You have 4 minutes to speak. You can begin now.
Okay, we live at 25 Wardour Street, and I've been here since 1991, 30 years ago. I looked around HRM, actually back then it was it was HRM, I guess, for probably 8 months before I finally found a place that looked comfortable to me and affordable and was in an area of single-family homes. And this was it, Wardour Street. Figured my cat would probably not get run over right away, and it was a quiet street, central, but 5 minutes walking from shopping. It had everything. 15 years ago, we looked at building a new house. Our house is pretty old, needed a lot of work. We looked at building a house, and we actually almost bought a house in one of the new areas. The last second, I go, what am I thinking? I'm already where I want to be. So we sank $250,000 into our house, redid the whole house, new foundation, everything. We're way upside down on the value of the house, but I said, I don't care. This is where we want to be because we want to be in an old area like this. It's a funky, old area. It's a walking area. It's not an area of fancy new, and they'll be high-end, I have no doubt about that, apartments that will not be for low-income housing. So anyway, we spent the money and stayed here. I'm echoing everything that John Tolson said, and a couple of other of the guys and ladies said extremely well what I feel about the area and how it's not just money. It's everything you put into it. So this feels like getting the rug pulled out from under you in the worst possible way. And to rub it in, we've had to do it without the residents being able to organize in any meaningful way. We had one meeting which was crammed with 60 or 70 people in the one little room at the library at the beginning of this, where everybody was adamantly against this changing the zoning. We do not want to consider changing the zoning at all. It's what the developer bought the land, tore down 3 good houses that people were living in. 2 of them, I believe, were rentals. So there goes 3 lower-end, lower-cost housing units to be replaced with high-end apartments with transient people that have nothing invested in the area. So to have to put up with this and then have to do it without being able to organize in peace, it just strikes me as divide and conquer by the developer, where all of us little residents are often our own little cones of silence, unable to really get together, talk to each other, see what's going on, while we're up against a well-funded developer led by professionals to present his ideas. And I have no doubt because I used to work for an engineering company and I went to a few council meetings and stuff myself. We had access to counselors, we had access to planners that us residents do not have. So I could not be more against this for all the reasons that have been said previously, but I'll add a couple more in. Not just car traffic, but the foot traffic at the intersection of Wardour North and Dartmouth Road is crazy. Somebody is going to get killed there on foot sooner. To add a whole bunch more people and more cars at that intersection, no matter how you slice it.
You're at 30 seconds.
Okay, that sort of sums it up for me. I'm just can't say enough how much I'm against the fact that this should be rezoned, that the developer has no right to expect it to be rezoned. He bought the lots on speculation that he could get it done, but I think we have to say no. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. Degroot has come back, so I'm going to add him back into my list. And
yes, so I would say, why don't we try Ron? I actually do have him by phone, so I'm going to try that first. So Ron, can you please press *6 to unmute your phone, please?
I did, *6. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you are. Okay, Mr.
Hi, everyone.
Sorry? you have 4 minutes. You can begin now.
Okay, thanks. Listen, I want to thank everybody for organizing this event this evening. First off, I want to say that my family and I moved to Bedford from Vancouver and Victoria in 2017. We sought at the time probably the most beautiful location in all of Canada. You can imagine leaving Vancouver and Victoria. People talk about how beautiful Vancouver is and how beautiful Victoria is. However, in 2013, we left Vancouver for many, many reasons, but mostly because of the overgrowth and the slippery slope of the development that had taken place over the decades from the 1980s onward, and the terrible planning that had been done to the city of Vancouver. So we decided in 2013 to move over to Victoria. Well, 500,000 of our best friends decided to move with us to Victoria. And guess what? The same thing happened to Victoria that happened to Vancouver. It's a disaster. What I'd like to do is transport everybody in Bedford, including all the planners, all the developers, all the politicians, all the residents, to Victoria to have a look at everything that has gone wrong with Victoria. Victoria used to be beautiful. So what's happening here, we arrived in 2017, number 7 Fort Sackville Road is where we live. We love it. We moved here because of the forested area, the safe community, the people. It's just a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous community that we recognized in Vancouver in the 1980s, and it was destroyed. It was destroyed because all the developers decided to build huge, ugly buildings, condos everywhere. It's a disaster. It's a mess. We decided to get out of BC and move over to the other ocean on this side of Canada, where very few people live. We have a beautiful community here. I guarantee you that the proposal is going down the wrong path. We do not need condos built in our neighborhood, okay? It's not necessary. All you have to do right now is go look at the upper part of Larry Utek, where the new Atlantic Superstore is, all those townhouses, all those condos that are being built up in that area. We don't want that here in this neighborhood. We don't need it, okay? It's not necessary. This area, this neighborhood where we are right now is one of the only places left in the entire HRM that looks as pristine as it does for good reason. It's been zoned purposely for single family dwellings. We do not want a rezoning done here. It's not necessary. You want to build condos? Go up Larry Utech, go to the other side, go to the top. You've got all kinds of bush up there, okay? Build thousands of condos up there if you want to, but don't touch our neighborhood. It's not necessary. I adamantly disagree with this proposal. I noticed that there were choices earlier. I choose number 3. Number 3 is do nothing. You do not want to do anything to this neighborhood. Leave the neighborhood alone, okay? I guarantee you.
Ron, you're at 30 seconds.
Slippery slope. Okay, thank you. This is a slippery slope of development creep. What's to stop these greedy developers to move to the next phase next year, the year after that? It's going to creep on you, just like it did in Vancouver and Victoria. I think that if this thing goes forward, the only solution we're going to have is a legal option, okay? And if we go down that path, I guarantee you, we're going to keep this in court for years.
Ron,
okay?
you're
That's
at
not
time.
a threat. That's a reality. Okay, take that to the bank.
Thank you very much, Mr. Degroot. Your time is up, and we thank you very much for coming tonight. Okay, the next speaker is?
Yes, Madam Chair, we're on our final round of 3. We did have a speaker, Bernard Saunders, who had issues joining the meeting via Zoom, so he's going to try to join us on Monday night.
Okay.
So our next round of 3 speakers begins with Judy Tatry, Kunyi Mangalam, and William Moe.
Okay, we'll start with Judy Tatry. Judy, would you like to unmute yourself? Thank you. Welcome, and you have 4 minutes. You can begin now.
Thank you. I live out on Stone Terrace. I've been here for 30 years. When I go to work at 9:15 in the morning, it takes me 5 minutes or more, even at that time of the morning, to get turned right on my street. When I come home to turn left into my street, it takes 10 minutes, even with COVID. More cars coming and going, I will be forever trying to get out of this street. You want to put on our side, you want to have a driveway with 9 parking spots. Our street is not even big enough for sidewalks. We don't have no sidewalks here. When people are coming out and going in, we got to go almost to the sides of the street so we can have room for 2 vehicles. And now you want to put 9 more vehicles coming out in this little street. So I think our street is too small for that driveway. And the traffic is ridiculous any given time of the day or night. It doesn't matter. It's a nightmare turning left and turning right. And I do think it will affect the property values of our house. For 30 years, any house that sold on this street sold within a week to 3 weeks. And I think a big building going up like that, I don't think the houses on this street, if people want to sell them, are going to sell as fast as they do right now. So I do think it will affect the value of our street. And as for Wardour, having to deal with 47 apartments coming out of the Wardour, when I go for a walk and try to cross Wardour, I got to look twice for people turning into Wardour. It is a very busy crosswalk there, and it's hard to get across to go across to the library. The traffic will be too much for Wardour itself. So I'm against this, and you know what? We bought this house because we love the area. We liked the idea there was no apartments. This house we're living in used to belong to my Terry's, my husband's father. We had been on this street for 30 years. He was on this street for 30 or more years. And I do not think our Dartmouth Road or our street or Wardour needs a big apartment building on it. It do affect the character of the street. And what about parking? Okay, our street cannot have cars parked on either side, even the people that live here. When we get guests and everything and we park on the side of our street, you could barely get out of the street. So if this building goes up, what are you going to do about parking on our street? Because people will park there. Where are all these apartments, their friends and families, when they come to visit, going to park? They're not all going to be dropped off by the door. They're going to be parking in front of everybody's property in the neighborhood. Our property in front of our house is for my family. I pay taxes for that area and not for somebody else to come along, and my kids can't come because they're not allowed, can't park because there's 10 or 20 cars parked down our street. And it will happen because at the corner of our street, years ago, we allowed a hairdressing business. And we fought that like forever. You couldn't even get in our street because the people that had the hairdressing business parked down the street. We had to wait out on the Dartmouth Road and we couldn't turn into our street.
Judy,
And
you're
it's
at
been
30
so bad.
seconds.
Okay, and I just want to say we oppose this completely. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is
Our next speaker, Madam Chair, is Tanyi Mangalam.
good evening.
Hi
And
there, can you hear me?
yes, I can, and welcome, and you have 4 minutes beginning
Thank you,
now.
Madam Chair. I'm not sure how I got on today's list because it was the intention to be on tomorrow's list when I could have a few more minutes to prepare, but I'll try and put some thoughts together. I do echo what has been said tonight by many of the residents. I live at on the Bedford Highway at the intersection of Fish Hatchery Lane and Bedford Highway. So I don't live directly in the neighborhood, although I consider that neighborhood to be part of my community because I walk there, I have friends there, I use the library there, so I'm in that neighborhood quite a lot. I also experience what many have said already, and what many fear in terms of the increased traffic and the safety that comes from that. I use the crosswalk across the Bedford Highway, and there is never a time that I feel safe in that crosswalk simply because of the enhanced traffic and people sort of bolting through the intersection to try and turn. And I'm sure that will get worse with more traffic as people try and go through the neighborhood to get onto the Bedford Highway. So I would echo all of that, what has been said already. I guess I have a couple more points that have been brought up a couple times. One is that any changes to the zoning and any kind of substantial difference from what's intended should work to improve the conditions of the neighborhood. It shouldn't be. It should work in favor of the people that enjoy the neighborhood, the community, the resources that people have, and enhance their overall experience of living in that neighborhood. And it's really obvious by what people have said, and to think about a 5-story, for example, apartment building that abuts the neighborhood, that's not going to be the case. We've heard a lot of how people reading from the document that governs Bedford planning and some of the core tenets that document is based on, that it should enhance the community. It should maintain the quality of the neighborhood. And it's so obvious that the plan does not do that, even if it's not a finished plan. It just doesn't do that in any shape. The second thing I wanted to emphasize is that it's not necessarily enhanced or increased density that is a difficulty. It's the way that it's done. And the gentleman that spoke before about the necessity of doing it in this neighborhood is completely not needed. So I would really emphasize that to what end is the development being done? It's not to provide low income housing or for the benefit of people that can't live anywhere else. It's done solely for volume. And when you turn over the quality of the neighborhood and the quality of the community living to a developer whose sole purpose is for profit and volume, that's a sure route to the destruction of neighborhood and community. So those are my thoughts. I hope they are understandable because I was planning to speak tomorrow. But thank you, Madam Chair, and the rest for hosting the opportunity to have our say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Okay, the next speaker is?
William Moe, and after William, there will be David Knowles, who is our last speaker.
Okay, I have Stevens on my list.
She was just going to call in to listen because she doesn't have access to the internet.
Okay, fine. Then we'll go to Mr. Moe.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for coming, and you have 4 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. So this is William from Degroot. So I'm a new homeowner since July last year. So I personally kind of visit 30, 40 houses in the HIM during the house searching last year. So I would say that this area is pretty unique in the whole HIM. So we visit the West Bedford. The house is very close to each other. The Lara Utah hold a lot of the apartments. And so I would say that we had a lot of effort to search in the house and find this area is pretty different than others. And we love this. As another gentleman said, this is a very unique area. So I didn't see why we need to change the zoning here and to update to have some condos here. It's facing the railway, and it's didn't see the benefit or the value increase for apartment. It will facing some difficulty for the rent in the future. So, and we tried, I think many people just said that we try to keep this with a low density community and to keep a quiet and safe neighborhood. So yes, this is my thought. I strongly disagree for the changing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker?
Yes, is David Knowles, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I see him as muted still. David, can you unmute yourself, please? Mr. Knowles, can you unmute yourself, please? There we go. Hello, Mr. Knowles. Mr. Knowles, are you ready to give us your presentation? Oh, something's not working there. Am I?
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
David is showing as unmuted for me. He's obviously having some issues. I think what I'll try doing is putting him back down to attendee and then putting him back as a panelist and see if that helps.
Yeah, okay.
Just give me a moment.
Mm-hmm.
David, this is Andrea speaking. Do you have the option on your mic icon that's on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen to select a microphone or select a speaker? If you have those, please make sure that it's turned on correctly. I have you showing as being unmuted, but I cannot hear you. Can you also turn on your video? Okay, no. So David, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an email with the telephone coordinates so that you can phone into the meeting. All right. So we will just, we'll pause for a minute or two for you to receive that email.
Okay. I'm seeing another name on the screen, Corey Smith.
Corey is from our ICT department. Madam
Oh,
Chair.
okay. Good to know we're covered.
We don't want him to speak, Ann. He's nothing but trouble.
I assume so. Okay. So I guess we should have had a cup of tea with us. Huh. You have to love technology. It got us to where we are right now. Then it hangs up on us sometimes. So we have to live with it. If it wasn't for technology, we wouldn't even have a meeting. So we have to be glad for that.
So Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just sent the phone link to David. So if he wants to leave the Zoom meeting and then open his email and join the meeting by phone, that would be awesome. And I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. How are we doing for time?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was muted. We're at 8:44, so we're good for time. We'll just give David an opportunity,
Yes.
another minute or so to join.
Yes. Okay. Does anybody sing or dance? We might as well have some entertainment while we wait.
I can do some stand-up, Madam Chair, but you'd probably cut me off.
Oh, I would, yes.
You know, by the time this comes to regional council, though, we could be back to significant numbers where we might be able to do some of this in person for the actual public hearing. So that would be nice. Hopefully we'll have herd immunity by September, October, as they say.
Mm-hmm. That will be nice.
But Sean may not like that, but I'm just looking to see he's fainting there enough.
I'd prefer to be in person, actually.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
I hope we all will be able to go back to normal soon.
That would be nice.
Not that it's not good to be able to do this when it works properly and when everything goes according to plan. But
it's amazing how far we come with technology, but also the fact with this time last year the vaccines were a dream, and
yeah,
now we have them.
Yeah, at least half.
Exactly.
Yes. It is amazing, though, when you think about technology. I actually have gone from when I started working using a slide rule. I'm one of the few people left on Earth who can say that, probably.
No, our planning department still uses them, don't they, Miles and Sean there? I don't know. I'm not getting around to them.
We use abacuses.
Oh, that's it. I used to think of all the changes my grandfather saw in his 100 years, and now I'm looking at all the changes I've seen, and it's quite amazing.
The microchip changed our world, didn't it?
Oh.
The only thing.
So, Andrea, are you having any luck?
Corey Smith is reaching out to David. He's just
Okay.
asking me to kick him out of the meeting, which is not nice, but we'll do that.
Okay. I think this is what we call dead air.
Sorry, Madam Chair. David's back into the meeting. I'm just going to see if I can. Hi, David. No, he's still not working.
There's there's a phone coming up here now.
Okay.
Maybe that's him. Hello, David?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Welcome.
Okay.
We've been waiting for you.
Finally. I'm going to go on speakerphone here.
Okay. Ooh, no, we've lost you again. David? You better go back to the way you were.
Yes, Madam Chair, he hung up, so I'm assuming he's going to try to call back in.
Okay. He said he was going on speakerphone, so I thought maybe he just pushed a button and went off into the ether.
Madam Chair, I think he's back in.
Yeah. Okay, there he is. Hello, David.
Yes, hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Just don't touch any buttons.
I guess I won't try this
No.
speakerphone.
No, you're
I'm
fine.
getting an echo here anyway. Okay. First of all, my name is David Knowles, and I plan on making comments against the proposed amendments. The following comment is taken out of the November 19th, 2019 report to Regional Council prepared by HRM planning staff. Excuse me, I got to shut my computer off here.
Yes, please.
I'm getting an echo. Okay.
Yeah, that's
The Bedford Secondary Municipal Planning Strategy, Bedford SPS policy document provides broad direction, and amendments should only be considered when there's a change in circumstances since the SPS policies were adopted or last reviewed. Well, I don't know if there's been too much change of circumstances in this area. The applicants do argue that the more recent HRM planning policy in general may encourage mixed-use development that support transit service. But just because there's a bus stop in an area does not mean you must put in a mixed-use multi-unit building to support it. That planning policy also provides, among other things, preserve the character of existing neighborhoods in their present form and promote neighborhood stability within the established residential areas. Do these proposals preserve the character of existing neighborhoods in their present form, and do they promote neighborhood stability within the established residential areas? I don't believe so. The following is from the staff review of the proposals. The regional plan identifies Sunnyside Mall area as a growth center. These sites offer a strategic opportunity to add residential infill and development to this area. I do find it strange that the Sunnyside Mall area is considered a growth center since it is essentially right now fully developed. Just because it is considered a growth center does not mean you have to jam two multi-unit buildings into two small areas of land. It's not a greenfield area like Bedford West was several years ago. It is two relatively small parcels of land. The change to multi-unit from what was originally single-unit dwelling in a unique area does not make any sense. Staff recommended that further sites along the Dartmouth Road be included in drafting the new policy for Bedford SPS. The staff also states that one of the criteria to be considered is to minimize the generation of motor vehicle traffic, especially along the Bedford Highway. The Bedford SPS emphasized the importance of maintaining the integrity of existing neighborhoods. And I don't believe these two building proposals seem to align themselves with the criteria for drafting new policy for the Bedford SPS. Now, a couple of specific reasons that I would suggest the proposals be turned down. Traffic and safety concerns. The intersection of Wardour and Dartmouth Road is already plagued with congestion at certain times. Very difficult to turn left, and sometimes you even wait to turn right. Many vehicles currently turn left off Dartmouth Road to avoid the congestion at Sunnyside Mall. This creates all sorts of traffic and problems along Shore Drive, Camden, Perth Streets, and Fort Sackville Street. There's no sidewalks between Brook Street and Shore Drive and Wardour, and additional traffic will increase risk for walkers in that area. Also, any additional traffic may cause safety issues with school kids on Camden and Perth Streets entering and leaving school, and for their parents who are picking them up. Wardour is a relatively narrow street.
David, you're on 30 seconds.
Okay, there are about 15 homes on Wardour. With the addition of 99 apartment units, traffic will certainly increase. The addition of two driveways on Wardour also, right near the intersection, will create more havoc. Second reason I don't agree with the policy is the integration of an existing neighborhood. The current neighborhood is primarily single-family, residential, low-density, rural-like environment containing cemetery, school, and close to historic Scott Manor House. In conclusion, there's no need to put additional units in this area. There is a high demand for housing, but there's so many more excavations along the Bedford Highway right now that there is probably sufficient apartment units coming on the market in the next couple of years. The original designation of this area as residential was done for a reason. There seems to be no reason to change this at this point for these two properties. Single-family homes were torn down for the Stone Terrace Wardour proposal. Why is it that a multi-unit apartment building with possible commercial space is preferable to single-family homes for this site? And residents purchased homes in this area knowing the zoning was residential. It's not appropriate, absent some strong reason, to change this now. And just because a developer purchases a couple of homes and tears them down, there's no reason to amend SPS and zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go and back to Sean to get some quick answers to some of those questions, I believe.
So through you, Madam Chair, I believe most of the questions were either probably rhetorical, but I jotted down some. If I've missed some, please tell me. So first off, my apologies for the 4-minute change. What happened is that we were expecting 15 people and we got many more. And so the question was, do we not let people speak or do we give them less time? So we gave people less time. My apologies also for those who are in the wrong evening. That was my mistake. Thank you for speaking tonight. Why the study area is one of the questions that I think was asked. Masonic Lodge, the streets nearby, properties fronting on Dartmouth Road. So our initial thinking when we look at this is coming from the regional plan. So part of the goal, and this is a goal that I understand people on this call do not necessarily agree with, is to find spots for housing in those growth centers. And the growth centers themselves are identified at a higher level by the regional plan. And so we were looking at potential opportunities to add different housing types along Dartmouth Road, as it's a major street with existing commercial uses on it. And as we look across HRM, as we do these kind of projects, we do look to these type of areas, major streets with some existing commercial and the potential to place different housing types right on them. And the second reason for a study area is we wanted to put both of these two proposals together instead of dealing with them separately. Many of the issues are the same. And that being said, we looked around and saw a couple of different sites like the office building, and we said these are also potential sites with the same issues. So instead of doing them all separately when applications come in, we suggested to council that we step back and look at a little bigger area. And I would just point out as well that just because you're in the study area or just because a property's in the study area doesn't mean that it's slated for change or that change may happen. Why do the current bylaws restrict apartment units? I think a number of people spoke to this reasoning. When the policy was written, there is a lot of language speaking to the preservation of existing neighborhoods, character of existing neighborhoods. So broadly, it would have been to maintain the character of those neighborhoods as is. And that's the point of the Bedford bylaws. The challenge becomes that the policy also suggests that there should be a mix of housing types in areas. So trying to balance that becomes one of the challenges. Unless you have other things, Madam Chair, I think that those are only the direct questions. I'm happy to answer more if there are.
I think basically it was questions around traffic and the fact that there's not walking areas, and the sidewalks are not there. The school is there, and the traffic is going to cause more problems for pedestrians and for people getting to the school. That's what I was hearing. Yeah, I think probably most of it was there weren't actual questions in there. It was statements. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, that's everything. I think, unless I missed one.
Madam Chair and Sean, it is Tim. I'm just wondering, what are we going to do about the 4 and 5 minutes going forward? First of all, will it be 5 going forward? And secondly, and maybe this is a question for Andrea, is 4 minutes actually permitted in any AO or any rules around this? Because normally the rule is 5. I just want to make sure we're not breaking any rules, A, and B, what are we going to do going forward?
We're coming up on we're just past the hour that we should have finished anyway. And we knew that in order to if we gave people 5 minutes, Sean wouldn't have had much time to explain the whole idea. And we did want to be able to have some time to answer any questions that were answerable tonight. So that was why the decision to go to 4 minutes. Okay. But
Madam Chair, I can speak to the Deputy Mayor's question regarding the administrative orders requirements regarding speaking time. So in terms of for public information meetings, there's nothing within the administrative order that mandates a minimum speaking time at public information meetings. So we go We start with up to and including 5 minutes is kind of our standard for public information meetings. But where there are significant numbers of participants, we modify it down to say 4 minutes or maybe even 3, depending on the numbers, so that we can ensure that everybody has an equal amount of speaking time.
Okay, then that's great. Thank you, Andrew. And we'll have to stick with that then, I guess, to be fair to the others. But I just wanted to make sure because I know it's different at public hearings and council meetings. So thank you.
Yes.
For clarification. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Well, I think we have pretty much covered everything for tonight. And tune in tomorrow. We'll be back, same time, same station. And I'd like to thank all members of the community who registered to provide your feedback on case number 22267, Dartmouth Road and Wardour Street in Bedford. It's important that members of the community are informed and provide feedback about proposed developments in their area. The Northwest PAC and HRM planning staff values this feedback from members of the community. If after the conclusion of the public information meeting you wish to provide further feedback or have additional questions, please contact the planner, Sean Gillis. You have until June 30th, 2021 to submit feedback on case number 22267, Dartmouth Road and Wardour Street in Bedford. Once again, thank you for joining us this evening.